Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors
and weight management and metabolic health experts.
and this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Hello, my gorgeous friends. It's Dr. Lucy here this morning, and I am without the gorgeous Dr. Mary because I have a very special guest to interview. And I think that for all the women in the world, you will relate very well to my gorgeous guest, Sharyn Streitberg. Sharyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honoured.
Well, I think that your story is remarkable. And I say remarkable almost with tongue in cheek because it is a great story. But it's not that you're super special, like that your story is, one of those, oh my God, she's so rare type stories. It's a story that we hear a lot, but it's a story that makes a phenomenal difference to the person experiencing the story.
Yes, it's an interesting story, one of travel and adventure and change.
Indeed, indeed. So what I'd love to know, Sharyn, if you could just set the scene for our listeners, just tell them a bit about who you are, where you live at the moment, and even how you found real life medicine.
So I am originally from Melbourne. I worked as a nurse in Melbourne for many years, and then my husband was assigned to overseas duties with his corporation that he works for. And I'm currently living in Switzerland, where I've been for the last 7 months. And prior to that, I was in Poland for 5 years. So I've had a very interesting change. And real-life medicine for me has been such a game changer in my life. I'm happier, I'm healthier, which I never thought was possible. And it was introduced to me by a friend in Melbourne in about March this year. And she's also a member of Real Life Medicine. And she told me about it and I went, it's just another thing that I have to think about. And, so here I am. I bit the bullet.
So your friend introduced you to real life medicine. Tell us about your health at that stage. Like, what was going on for you? Why did she think that you needed to, be introduced to us?
I was battling with my weight for many, many years, up and down, all over the place. I've tried numerous different lifestyle changing programs, which were probably not as natural and real as they could be. I don't know if I can mention what I've tried, but
Of course.
I was at
absolutely.
Weight Watchers at 15, so I could get a beautiful Deb dress way back in the day. I look back at photos of that now and go, I wasn't even overweight. I was sporty. But anyway, I went, and the diet trauma that I hear a lot about, I don't think I fully experienced that aspect, but constantly being bigger than my friends. Then I started nursing, and I put my weight on when I was at college because I was drinking 10 cans of Coca-Cola a day to stay awake because we were partying, of course, and studying in the day. And it just went from there, just blew out of control, and it just went up and up and up. Then I lost weight and I got down to a reasonable weight, and then from then on, it's just gone up and up. So at my heaviest, I was 130 kilograms. And I made some changes, and I used a product called Isogenics, and it worked, and I did maintain it, but it just was so full of stuff that I shouldn't be putting in my body. And my girlfriend in March this year, because I'm still dabbling every now and then in shake meal replacement, and it's just not good to put stuff in your body you don't know what it is.
No. And did you have any kind of health effects, related to ongoing weight gain?
Yes, so 4 years ago I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and hypertension. I suspect the type 2 diabetes may have been a couple of years before diagnosis, but I chose to ignore it. I had this nurse, good nurse, bad nurse, the good nurse says I should do this, and this is what I teach my patients and my clients. The bad nurse says, it doesn't apply to you. And just,
Yes.
like,
we call that the rebel who doesn't care, just says, bugger it, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. So I didn't believe I had hypertension. I just went to the doctor one day I was in Poland then, and because I have a pacemaker for a non-specific reason, unusual reason, but anyway, he did my blood pressure and it was like 260 on 120, and I'm like, I said, that's ridiculous. My blood pressure 6 months ago was perfectly stable. There was nothing wrong. So I just thought his machine was like that. Electronic machines, I just say don't work on my arm because I have had a fat arm. Just ignored it.
Yep.
Anyway, he said, just humour me and take these tablets. And so I was reluctant to take them because I didn't want to, pass out from dropping blood pressure because I didn't trust the machine. And then I flew to Australia because my dad was having surgery and I wanted to be in Australia. So they had a blood pressure clinic at the hospital and I thought, I'll check it again. And it was ridiculously high again. So I asked them to do it manually. And they said, no, it's definitely high. So I ended up then agreeing with my doctor thinking, wow, what has changed? And I was checking my glucose levels at that time after the doctor had told me, and they were high. I think the week before I came to Australia, I was getting readings of 10 or 12 and up to 18, and I just thought, I just couldn't believe it. I was like total denial. And the warning signs were there, you're getting up in the night to go to the bathroom. I was drinking water. I drink a reasonable amount of water, but I was drinking a lot more and I was thirsty at night. And I hadn't really changed my diet, even though I had tried to, from my previous discussion with my GP in Australia, to manage my lifestyle. So the writing was on the wall.
It's so interesting, isn't it, though, how strong our denial mechanisms can be, even in the face of really obvious signs. And as you said, you're a nurse, so you knew, but your brain goes, oh, no, it can't possibly be true, and it doesn't want to know about it, so it just runs away and hides.
Exactly. It was quite bizarre, and I just said to my husband recently, I can't believe everything I thought was true is not true. And I was teaching at one of the universities in Australia in the nursing school, and I'm teaching nutrition, and I'm now realising how I'm teaching the wrong thing. I'm teaching the guidelines, but for me, as someone with clear metabolic disorder, it's not the guidelines that I needed to follow. So that was a really perplexing situation for me.
Absolutely. So you came home and you met up with your friend, and she said, I know this real life medicine crew, you should have a look at them. And what did your brain do then?
So what happened to have that discussion is when I arrived in Australia in October last year, 2022, to settle my kids back in Australia because they've been living overseas with us and it's time for them to start their life university after finishing high school, my blood glucose started to get ridiculously high, and I couldn't understand why because I was taking a weekly injection of Trulicity. It was stable in Poland. It really was all to do with the change of environment, change of diet, the stress that we had been under through COVID, and it was a myriad of things. And I went to my doctor and my renal function was not looking as it should for someone my age.
Right. So you really were profoundly unwell then with your metabolic syndrome and diabetes. It was having some significant effects on you.
It was having significant effects, and that was it for me. And I worked with the GP in Australia before I came to live in Switzerland to join my husband. And I said, I need to fix this. And then I was telling my girlfriend, who is also a nurse, and she said, this is what I've found. I'm going to you had a conference. She said, I'm going to this. She said, have a look. And I said, look, when I get to Switzerland, I'll have a look. I said, but my mind at the moment, sorting out the kids, making sure they're all settled, I'll get to it.
It's a profoundly common trait amongst women that we look after everyone else's needs first and we'll get to ours at some stage.
Yes, exactly. And I've realised the mistake in that, and I tell people now, don't put things off. I've got girlfriends in Australia who are amazed how much progress I've made, and I tell them what I've done, but they haven't got the brain space to think about it because there's so much going on in their lives.
Absolutely. So you then got back home, and then what happened?
I said, well, I looked at it, I read up on it. I finally had the headspace to think about it because the house had already been unpacked, thankfully, because that's an arduous task every few years. And I read about it and I said to my husband, I think I should try this. And he goes, oh, he's the devil's advocate in my life. And he says, well, you try a lot of things. He said, really, you just need to exercise more and eat less. And I just looked at him cross-eyed and I went, I don't eat more than you. And that was also the problem. I'm not eating enough, but I'm not eating enough of the right food. So he said, if you want to try it and see what happens. So, and here we are, I started in May. So I started looking at, in April, I made some changes in May and hit the first 12-week challenge in June. And I haven't looked back. And my husband is amazed.
You now have momentum.
Yes.
Which is why we call it momentum, because that's what it is. You get started with just a little step, toe in, make a couple of things, hope that it's going to be all right, and then you just get going and it just moves forward.
Yeah, and look, it is so simple. And look, I still have struggles. I think for me, the incorporation of the mindset and the hypnosis has actually been a real change for me because I've always looked at those concepts as, it's all a bit hippie.
Bit of fluff.
A bit of fluff. And look, I don't need that. And but I thought, if I'm going to embrace this, I've got to embrace it all. So I just started with one change, and that was looking at my cupboards, removing everything as you do. Although I didn't throw things out, I put it in the cupboard where I couldn't see it. And actually, mostly that's not a huge issue for me, and my husband just eats the garbage that's left. But after 7 months, there's not any garbage in the house anymore, really.
So he'll be getting healthier. He'll be getting healthier by proxy.
Yeah, he claims that the weight I've lost has gone to him. So,
well, and so how's your health these days? What's been happening?
So I have dropped my HbA1c from January 2022 from 12 to, I think my last one was in September this year, and it's now 7.
Excellent.
So I've been really pleased. The biggest drop came, I think, in June when I started. It was 9. And now it's down to 7, and hopefully it gets down into the normal range. My endocrinologist here was not openly supportive of what I was doing. He sort of felt it was like low carb, it's really keto, and you need to have carbohydrate. And I said, I will prove you wrong. And so I've actually now sent him the link to him about what I'm doing because I turned up in his office recently for a check. My renal function is back to normal. I don't have a huge albumin leak anymore, which is just amazing because that was the turning point for me, and it should have been a lot of other things. My blood pressure is stable. I only take quite a small dose of an antihypertensive, so they don't want to stop that at this point. And my glucoses are sitting below, it depends. Some days it's sitting around 6.5, some days it's sitting around 7 or 8. And I always know when I've not been as focused on what I'm eating by my glucoses in the middle of the day.
But I think that, again, one of our favourite sayings is progress, not perfection. But, and you are showing enormous progress from a woman that was really profoundly unwell with type 2 diabetes, affecting your kidneys that were leaking protein. And for, our listeners, hemoglobin A1C is a measure of people's diabetic or glucose control, and 12 is what we would consider poor control. It means that your blood sugars were probably sitting around the 18s fairly frequently. So to then have it come down into 7, and whilst it's not quite in a normal range, it is an optimal, like it's amazing for someone with type 2 diabetes to be able to reverse your disease.
Yeah, and the endocrinologist here was like, this is amazing. He was just blown away by the change just in the 3 months between seeing him. He couldn't believe it. And then I did a 2-week continuous glucose monitor because I wanted to educate myself on what foods affect me the most. I was really curious to understand that, and being a nurse, I like a little bit of research and a little bit of science. So because the continuous glucose monitors here are outrageously expensive, and being type 2 diabetes, your insurance will not pay for it. So it's like $180 a month, Australian dollars, just for the little tag that goes on your arm. So he just lent it to me for 2 weeks, and for 2 weeks I looked at what I ate, and I ate things that I used to eat just to see what it would do. And I've learnt so much about the food I eat, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It just reinforced everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I remember correctly, you posted a picture in the Facebook group recently about an achievement that you'd presumably didn't think was possible. So I'd love you to share that too.
So I've had 2 major achievements. The first one was the picture I posted first was a dress. I have 2 dresses that I have kept for 23 years. I last wore these dresses because they were so expensive when I brought them. You know, 23 years ago now they're not so expensive, but I last wore that dress 2 weeks before my wedding, and it was firm then and a little bit too curvy, and it was probably shouldn't have been wearing it. And now I put it on and it was loose. So I pulled out the second one and it was loose, and I was just like, I was so excited. I just stood there and cried. It was it was so funny. My husband goes, "Why are you crying? You look amazing." And I went, "I know, but I never thought I'd wear these again." They've travelled the world with us. The dresses have been to 8 countries.
Yeah, wow.
One of them I'd worn once and it was too firm, but to a Melbourne Cup event somewhere where we were living. And, I cried my eyes out like a baby. It was like laugh cry.
Yeah, joy.
Yeah, and my second big achievement recently is I participated in the Lausanne Marathon, the 10K event. I did the walk and nearly got mowed over by the Nordic walkers that they walk with their sticks because they move like stealth. Yeah. But I finished it, and I finished it 5 minutes under what I expected I'd finished it. So I was pretty happy. I was a bit sore afterwards because I do a lot of walking and I live on the side of a hill. It's really a glacier without snow. It used to be a glacier 1,000 years ago. And Lausanne is very hilly, so it's got 3-4 tiers. So we walk a lot in the vines, the vineyards, but normally we get the train or the bus to the top and we walk down because my cardiac function is somewhat average and I'm not particularly fit. Going uphill is a struggle. So, and we walk down, but there's still some hills to go up, but it's just slow and easy wins the race, progress, not perfection. And so I thought 10K be easy. I won't get sore because I'm walking on a weekend. I'll do 16,000 steps. And I was so sore the next day I couldn't sit down. I actually cleaned the house so I didn't have to sit down and to keep the muscles moving.
Yeah. So walking the 10K, that's something you never thought you'd be able to do, this time last year.
This time last year, that would not have been possible for me. I would have struggled with the distance. I would have struggled with the muscles, feet, although my feet are pretty strong. And just my fitness was shocking. So I would have said in May this year, I could not have done it at all. There was one hill, and it's a very minor hill, but in May this year I couldn't walk up that hill. Now I can without stopping. So they're all amazing achievements.
Oh, totally. And when you posted that picture in the Facebook group, everyone was so happy for you.
And it's such reinforcement that you get from the group. And I remember when I first started, like everyone, you guys said in your podcast and your support coaching calls is when you do this and you start posting photos, you'll start getting lots of comments and stuff, and that will help feed and stuff. But you've got to remember that eventually the positive comments will stop, and you've got to be able to sustain that. So for me, all these little wins and the non-scale victories, the scale victories are amazing for me. I'm the lightest I've been. I'm smaller than the day I was married in 2000. So these are all victories that sustain me, and seeing everyone else's victories, it's like, we can do this. It's been an incredible journey and not something I ever thought would happen.
Amazing. And I think one of our, sayings in Momentum is that you're doing it for yourself, but not by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel alone. And if I'm having a bad day, I can post about it and get support, and someone else will say, I'm having a bad day too. This is what I've done. And so I found that environment really helpful, adding the meditations. I'm a person who loves structure. So what I liked about the 12 weeks was on Saturday, the information would come through for me at midday because it was midnight in Australia. And so on Saturday afternoon, if I had time, I would already start the modules. And so every week I had a plan. I would do this and I would do that and I would do this. So for me, who loves everything lined up and ordered and how I have to do it, I found it super easy. The simplicity was great. And I had the mind space to really think about challenging my views on meditation and hypnosis. I was always afraid of hypnosis because, you might end up doing something you shouldn't.
There is no quacking like a duck on our hypnosis.
So I found it super simple. So I'm probably struggling a little bit now because the structure is not the same. The material's there, but it's not like it's new every week. There's so much to fish through. But I'm also doing intensive French at the moment because part of my visa conditions is to learn French. And let's say on ne sait pas, I don't know how good I'm doing. But I have an exam coming up, and hopefully it'll be done and dusted in 10 days, and then I can refocus again on getting my structure back.
Indeed. So I guess, for you, it's had a profound change. You've had a profound change.
I can't believe I've had it. I kick myself every day. It's like, I cannot believe it. I see my shape go past a window and I'm actually looking at myself. I'm not trying to hide.
I love that.
I am going to need new clothes.
That's the good luck, bad luck thing of weight loss, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's a good thing.
And do you think that this is, something that you'll be able to maintain? Like, because that's been a lot of people go, I don't think it's sustainable.
Totally sustainable. I am still losing weight and I'm doing it reasonably slowly. And I still have my slip-ups. I feel I've got a lot of carb creep at the moment because we've had a few celebrations and I try to do the best I can, but sometimes it's a little hard to resist. I know I cannot have Pringles in my house or crisps or chips or anything because I love them. And I can't just have one. So they're just not in the house, although they are in the house at the moment because we had people bring them to a party last week. We had a delayed housewarming and I did all low-carb food and people didn't even know.
No, it's not hard. Honestly, it isn't. Once you just need a little bit of space in your mind and the actual doing of it is easy.
Yeah, it's so simple and I have the mind space. My kids are doing well and, they used to take up a lot of my time for various issues due to COVID-related stress. But, things are going well and I like changing things from pasta. I think I've had pasta twice in the last 7 months. I went to Italy and I was terrified I was going to fall over in Italy and not eat. I went to Italy for a week. I met some friends from Australia there, some girlfriends. And it was so easy to maintain because it's interesting. Not everyone eats pasta in Italy. And I didn't eat any pizza because I'm not a big pizza fan anyway. Although the fat dough pizza is amazing.
Yeah, I know. For pizza lovers, you can still, have your pizza. What is it? Have your cake and eat it too. You can have your pizza and eat it too.
Exactly. But I think the most important thing is that the self-compassion. I used to kick myself when I'd slip up and down. Maybe I think I'm a bit too self-compassionate at the moment. But
no, you're onto it. So firm but fair.
I'm the boss of me, and that resonates. You guys said that from the beginning. You are the boss of you. Is it helpful or unhelpful? So just changing the words, how I spoke about how I ate, has made an incredible difference.
Yeah. You're still a work in progress, and I think that's why we, really spend our time with that self-compassion, because for decades, you put yourself at the bottom of the heap. You tried dieting, you learned, some tools that are probably unhelpful long-term. And so it's unlearning that behavior and those stories and relearning the new ones, which, to quote Pantene, doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen.
Yeah, it's amazing. It took a while for the changes to start. I would say, I think maybe by week 8, I started to see real positive changes in the 12 weeks. And I did start losing reasonably quickly, I think about week 4 or week 5. But actually seeing the changes in myself was probably around week 8. And it was quite amazing. I still pinch myself.
I know. And what I just love, and again, our listeners won't be able to see you on the camera, but just, your skin's clear, you're vibrant, you just look well.
Yeah. And my fingernails, I cannot believe my fingernails are healthy. And they were never terrible, but I just thought they're stronger. It's amazing how much damage I was doing to my body before this.
Well, again, I think it's always helpful to know, though, that our body is an incredible organ. It can repair if given the opportunity, as yours has. And we always say to people, it's never too late. People are never too old. It's never too late. You can always start. And the best time to start, for a lot of people might have been a few years ago, but the second best time is now.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I said to people recently, I didn't tell anyone I was going on this journey. I decided to keep it a secret. And my husband did let the cat out of the bag, because he sent the photos that he took of me in my dresses, because he was so proud and he was excited for me, and he didn't realize that I hadn't told anyone. So the family were like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I said, I am eating healthy, real food all the time. And they said, but don't you miss? I said, I'm not missing anything. I said, if I feel like a potato, I eat a potato, but I eat one potato. I don't eat 10 potatoes. Interestingly, potato doesn't affect my glucose as much as white flour. That stuff is the devil.
Well, I think, white flour doesn't have any starches or fiber. It's not a whole food. Like a potato comes as a whole food. It makes quite a bit of difference how you prepare it. So people that do a fine mash, for example, will often that'll put glucose up compared to a baked potato.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have potato often, but occasionally I'll have a small potato. But mostly I love the cauliflower mash.
Indeed. And you know what? You are the boss of you. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be consistent. So if you're eating low-carb real food most of the time, and you're honest with your brain about what's going on, then you will always get results. It's just incredible. And Sharyn, you have changed the trajectory of your health and your future. Future Sharyn is going to be looking back and thanking current Sharyn for change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not looking back.
I love it. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And for all our lovely listeners, if you relate to Sharyn's story and you want to be part of Momentum, please, now's the time. The doors are open. And all you need to do is toddle over to our website at all the W's, rlmedicine.com/momentum, and you can join our beautiful crew. It is the most supportive, lovely, safe and just incredible environment, and full, mainly because it's full of incredible women. And, you know, Mary and I are blessed and honoured to be part of their journey. So go check it out. All right, lovelies, I will see you next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye for now. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.